guys, how's it going? Today I'm going to go over how to draw an eye, and I'm going to do it in pencil. It's going to be kind of pencil centric, so it's going to be very specific to a pencil. I'm using a 9B, doesn't matter. That's really, really dark. Actually, normally you don't have to use that dark of a pencil. One second. Oh man, I broke it. Hold on. Hold on. Okay. Woo! So it breaks real easy. It's real, whatever. But these are the soft kind, not the hard ones. The hard ones are more for mechanical stuff like that. This is soft, more of a shading tool. So let's go over really quick the eye. Like I said, this is mainly, I'm going to use it for the pencil. Very pencil specific. I'm going to go over really quick the eye. First off, just some of the basics. Let's say okay, here's what not to do. Okay? Let me go over that real quick. Do not make the eye this kind of almond shape that you see like in hieroglyphics and a lot of stuff. When people first start drawing, they always do that peanut shape. Don't do that. Even if some people's eyes look like that, there's definitely special cases for it, all that stuff, depending on different types. But for general face types, general, we're talking about the general people, what looks more attractive in a drawing, if you were to simplify the actual shape of the eye, it's more of a diamond shape. And let's just say this is the nose right here. Is this on camera? Yeah, let's say this is the nose in the middle here. Nose area, whatever. The eye is going to have that peak toward the inner upper section. And everybody's is different, but when you do it in a drawing like that, it just looks attractive, and a lot of people do fall into that. There's a peak right here. And there's also a peak down below on the right, below on the outer side. That's just general rule. Take it, as you see it. That's one way to do it. Do not draw that almond shape. It's too even. It's too weird. That's just, basic on one level. Another thing I'm going to go over. Let me see. Another thing, okay? When you're drawing the eye, you got to think really hard. The eye is a ball, you know what I mean? And the ball right here has an open, let me move this up. Okay, the eyeball, it's an eyeball, you know what I mean? That's one thing I see a lot of beginners, again, I'm going to go over a lot of beginners' mistakes first, so what not to do. But when you're actually thinking about the eyelid, think of the eyelid as wrapping around this eyeball, you know what I mean? It has a layer to it. The eyelid will have a layer, so it's literally wrapping around the eye. That's how you get that width. You know what I'm saying? You got to think of the ball in there. That's how you get, it's going around that corner. You know what I mean? When you actually do the sorry, I'm getting tongue tied here. When you actually do the eyelid. Another thing just to keep in mind, if you do these two things, like I swear, like I'm not even just I'm not trying to bullcrap you, but your drawing will get better immediately, just knowing that. You know what I mean? You're going to start implementing it, you just practice it. Another basic thing, when you're drawing the eye, just the parts of the eye, okay, just let's go into this drawing right here. There's the iris, which is the colored section. There's the pupil, right? How big do you make the iris in comparison to the entire eyeball? Generally, it's about, you can take that and put 3 of them in there, like a cross. So it's about 1/3 the whole iris would take up in terms of the whole eyeball. And then for the pupil, the black part on the inside, it's about the same thing, 1/3 length across the entire iris. Again, just general. The reason these generalities exist are so you have a basis so they'll look human. You know what I mean? If you're drawing something out of your head, they'll just look human. You know what I mean? You have a ballpark range. And then you kind of customize it to what people's types are. So, as I get that question a lot too. It's like, oh, like those rules are nothing, blah, blah, blah. They're no good and all this shit, But no, I'm sorry I'm using bad words, by the way. All this stuff. But the truth is, those exist and they just look more attractive and they give you a starting run. All right. Let me see what else could go to. So let's go over like just straight up drawing one. Let me move this thing out of the way. All right. So let's just do straight up eyeball. The way I start one. I start one like this. Start with simple shapes. When you do a simple shape, and I'm using the side of the pencil, by the way. We're going to be pencil specific. See, I'm using the side. The side of the pencil makes it so I can kind of erase it better. There's no sharp edges dug into the paper. Like if I do it on the tip, it's going to be a little harder to erase when you do that, you'll find. And we'll go over parts of the eyes we're doing this. There's the tear duct right here. It's a small little ball toward the inner portion of the eye, you know, the inward toward the face. There's a tear duct. Lower lid, upper lid. Trying to figure out. There's a fatty pad over here in this section of like above the eye, kind of in the brow. Kind of hangs down sometimes, depends. Putting in the, like I said, the iris. I'm going to make it pretty dark, so I'm going to just shade in the whole thing with the side of the pencil, using the side. What I'm doing right now is I'm going down pretty loose, pretty messy, using, I believe they call it tonal drawing, you know, like that tonal lay-in, you know. You're doing it all with the side. You're not going, you know, there's different methods, right? Some people go straight in with line. That's a cool way. This is just a different way to do it. You're going with the side very tonally. You know, you're finding the darks and the lights first. You know, sometimes I think it's quicker. I usually do this when I'm doing portraits. You know, it's a fast way to find proportion. I usually use line art for like full body stuff and like, you know, comic books type things, and that's where I really need to figure out everything, every little inch of it. But with, you know, face, there's a lot of room. It's very forgiving. All right, see, it's already kind of reading as an eyeball. You know, we haven't really done much of anything. We just kind of using the side and shaded it in there. All right, then after this, I would actually look into where the darker dark's going to be. The darker darks are probably going to be in the pupil here. So I'm going to take that and I'm going to do just a gradation in here. And we're not doing a full-blown crazy rendered eye right now. I want to do just kind of a, like you're doing a life drawing. You know, you only have like a few minutes to do life drawing. And I make it darker down here for a couple of reasons. This is a style thing that I'm going to talk about, so don't take this as, like I said, gospel or anything like that. I'm doing this because I feel like grounds the picture better when I put a darker, kind of a darker value on the bottom part of this, because I know this whole section is going to be dark. And then I gradate it up, meaning it slowly goes a little lighter. And I think it looks very pretty when you slowly go lighter. And then as it comes down here, I'm going to give it a sharp kind of edge. I'm going to go right on the tip of my pencil and give it a sharp edge toward the bottom to kind of contain that information. Right now, I'm talking jargon, not jargon, but I'm talking about what's going on in my head. If you have any questions, please, now is the time to comment in the comment section and ask me, and I'll answer as best as I can. Because, you know, one of the hardest parts when you're learning this stuff is teaching it to somebody else. It's kind of like, oh yeah, it makes sense in my head, but then you're like, how do I verbalize this? You know, like, this is weird. So that's kind of a big issue. Over here to the iris. The iris has you know, regardless if it's brown or whatever, has a very thick edge, and I'm not gonna make it totally sharp. You know, I'm just gonna. I'm still kind of on the side here, on the pencil. Kind of on the side. I'm sharpening it slowly there. I mean, I'm not sharpening it yet. You know, I'm just trying to make it a solid line, but I don't want to make it too long. You know, see how it's kind of soft still on the edge. It's not full-blown like line like I use there. And then I throw in the shadow, because normally the light is coming from above, right? Normally the light's coming from above, so what happens is the actual eyelid casts a tiny little shadow onto the eyeball and on the iris over here. It just casts a tiny little shadow right there, like a thin strip along almost the whole edge. And then as the shadow, same thing over here. It's a ball, remember? So the ball's going to kind of roll. It's going to have this slight roll toward the tear duct. You know, because remember, we're dealing with a round object that's shoved inside this, you know, our skull. And same thing goes for the bottom too. I'm going to give it a slight roll. Another thing about graphite, you know, pencil, graphite, is I can kind of rub it with my finger. Not too much, because when you rub it way too much, the oil from your hand comes off, and you will not be able to erase it. It's going to all dig in there, you know? So I just do it a little bit. 1, 2, 3, maybe. You know what I mean? If I'm really crazy, I'll go really, really into it if you know, trying to correct a mistake or something. But a couple of times is good. You can even do that, you know, make it a thing. And it also depends how oily your hands are at the moment, you know? So I want to make it seem like again, like it's a ball under there, you know? If you really want to get crazy with it, we can do something else too. Hold on, actually, I'll do that in a second here. Right here, go along the edge, containing this shape too. Going down to the eyelid, the lower lid. And the eyelid's going to have this kind of shape like, it's going to have a, how do you say it? It's gonna, think of it in 3D. It's going to be like a little step ladder, if you think of that right there. Let me see if it shows over here. I'm going to think of the eye. See, like if I was to draw a line down here, I'm going to think about that. Boom. See, that's the eyelid. And then the roundness of the eye. And then it's going to come out a little bit right here for the top of the eyelid. And then it's going to go down. And that's what I'm thinking about in my mind. I'm thinking about that shape. And I'm going to shade it like that too, actually. So I'm going to... And like I said, you know, with the shading, you can go into crazy shading detail. You know, people, you see those crazy demos online, you know, where they spend, you know, pretty much like 30 hours on like one thing, like the one eye, you know. And that's a great exercise to do. You should do that. Although honestly, I don't have the patience for that. I mean, we had to do stuff like that in school, and I have those stored up, but I don't like doing that all the time. It's very time consuming. But if you have the patience, go for it. Try to see how cleanly you can render something, you know? And that's actually something I recommend for a beginner, because you will learn a lot from it. One habit, I'll talk about this. One habit when you draw, at least that I got, and almost everybody I knew got, and it doesn't mean you're going to have it, okay? And I don't want to jinx you if you're going to, but is finishing your drawings. That's such a hard thing. I would just start them. I just couldn't finish it. You know, and that's a bad habit that I'm even still fighting with today, you know. Just try to push through and really, really do as much as you can in the drawing before you move on, you know what I mean? I mean, this is just a demo, but I'll tell you, for like your own personal work, you're like, hey, you'll learn a lot by pushing. There's almost this, it's almost like mental weights, you know. You get to this point and you're like, man, I do not want to look at this anymore because you're making so many mistakes on it, blah, blah, blah. But if you just stay on it, you can try as hard as you can to fix the mistakes that you made. Yeah, man, dude, you learn so much. I think that's probably the way people get better the fastest, you know, is by doing that. So let's go up here to the other top of the eyelid, top eyelid. Same thing. I'm gonna think of that little layer up here. It's also running into the fatty part of the eye, drooping down up here. So it's going to be a dark up here because this fatty part kind of lays on top of it, depending on what, you know, your genetics, you know. But I'm going to do it that way here. And this right here is going to kind of run into the nasal cavity over there. But there is this kind of scooping kind of area before it hits the nasal cavity. And you can stylize that too if you want. You can make it darker over here and make that gradate a little bit. So if you haven't done this for a while, or by the way, even if you're novice or even advanced, the crazy thing is that it's always good to go over the basics. You know, you're never gonna go wrong working on basics. You're only gonna get better. Because I honestly, like for me, when I was intermediate, I'd be like, man, I'm over this. You know, practicing the eye and the mouth and all that stuff. You know, but you never really get over it. You know, you never do. You'd never go wrong doing it. Because sometimes you'll get to this level of your drawing where you're intermediate and you're like, man, I'm already good at that. And then somebody points out a mistake you made on the eye, and you're like, man, I thought I was over that. You know, sometimes you just don't get over it because, you know, you don't practice it for a while. You move on to stuff, and then you're like, oh yeah, going through this stuff it really would help, you know. So, you know, you'll never go wrong with the basics. Putting a dark line there. See, I put too much of a dark line, I think, right there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to see if I can mess with that by shading that outside part. Let me see what it looks like. Oh man, my time's running out, guys. But let me show you one quick trick, okay? Basically, when we're talking about highlights, I'm going to tell you about the highlight. When we're talking about highlights, usually you're talking about contrast. You know what I mean? You talk about contrast, and contrast is the difference between the light and the dark. Okay? For example, this, you know, it looks relatively dark-ish. But if I put down, let's say I put down this super dark. See that? Now see how light this whole thing looks like compared to that now? You know what I mean? And without it, it looks kind of like, all right, it's kind of leveled out. Contrast really has a lot to do with everything. So that, a good way if you want to pull out a highlight is to put, and this is called halftone. It's kind of like not shadow, but it just kind of gives a whole, kind of drawing a little bit of flavoring, you know, or the whole surface some flavoring, kind of. So it's just not totally white of the paper. So what you do with that, what you could do, is do that. Let's see if this is going to work. I'm going to try it out. Grab my eraser, and I'm going to take out a highlight, and then I'm going to try to mess with it. Hold on. Let's see. I'm going to take out, and by the way, I have a kneaded eraser. I recommend the kneaded eraser. You can use any eraser you want, but those pink, yellow, those pink school erasers, I think suck for drawing. I think those are terrible for drawing. Just my opinion, but I mean, because they leave pink shit on the paper, don't they? I mean, I don't know. But I'm trying to pull out that highlight and kind of sculpt that highlight a little bit. And then kind of where it touches this, kind of where it touches the iris here, I'm going to shade below it to pull out that contrast. I want the difference between the light and the dark. Not too harsh, but I want you to know that that thing's there. And then right here at the edge where it's going to hit, that's where I will probably pull the major difference between dark and light. I will put in the dark over here where it hits. And by the way, that has to do with focal point. Focal point is basically the focus of the drawing. And again, this is a demo. We're just doing one body part. It's just the eye. But it's something to know about. You know what I mean? Focal point is usually where the biggest contrast is, really. It's like where your eye first looks. You're like, whoa, what the hell? Because you need to give the audience something to look at. You know what I mean? And you're kind of directing where they're going to gaze. You know, I know that's kind of an advanced concept, but like I said, something to know. Oh, man. Let's see. But I would have to meddle with this thing. It's looking a little bit too, I don't know, strawberry. I'm not sure how to say it. My time's up, but what's up, guys? How's it going? If you learned anything, please like this video or share it. That'd be great. I'm going to make a huge effort to update this YouTube channel constantly now. My name is Enrique, and if you have any questions, let me know. If you just want to say hi to me. That's about it. I'll see you guys later. That was the eye demo. See ya.